the communities and to the collectives. The webinar is being live streamed.
Yay.
I'm going to YouTube instead because
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know why.
All good. The communities and to the collectives. The webinar is being live streamed. Yay.
I'm going to YouTube instead because on Facebook.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know why.
All good.
So I need to turn the volume down on here.
The webinar.
I don't, because one's slow and one's not. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, live streams have a delay sometimes, so
Yeah.
that's perfect.
So it's in the background behind me, so I don't see it because it is a delay.
Yeah.
Okay. We had 70 people register.
Wow.
Yeah, just so you guys know, because that's quite a lot. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's a lot of 1%ers.
Yeah. And you know, in some of these groups, there's over 1,000. So, you know, we could get more as we continue to keep posting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Annie.
Yeah, I see the chat's active there.
Well, we've got 12 people signing on already. We'll get started here in just a few moments. Allow these waves to clear and settle your energy. Can you hear them loud and clear?
Donnelly, do you know how to share through your computer audio?
Was it not sharing from my phone?
No one can hear it now. It's too quiet.
Oh, okay. I do, but I was going to go ahead and get started because we are only going to be here for an hour.
That's great.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. I am Donnelly Gastrick, and I want to introduce you to both Violet and Lindsay, and we will be sharing with you today. Celeste could not make it. She turned a turn for the worse and a little under the weather right as we were moving into the time to start. So she had to bail out and take care of her excessive coughing. But we are going to go forward today with letting you know a little bit about us, and each one of us is living our design in unique and individual ways. And I always hear from reflectors on how hard it is being a reflector. And I thought it would really be beneficial to share a panel discussion and let other reflectors in on how you're unique. You're so unique and you're so beautiful and you are so special. And you will find your way to your unique design and all that you are. And I'm hoping that by hearing each one of us and our journeys, that you'll get to see how different we are in our own journey and the path we're following and what got us here and how we stay here, but also the subtle sameness behind the scenes that keeps us in flow, keeps us in alignment. So without further ado, who wants to go first?
Pick.
I'm going to pick you, Violet.
Ah!
Let me stop screen sharing and put us live and center on the screen so that, yeah, we're the only ones up. Perfect.
Awesome.
Take it away.
So
Tell
I'm
them
like,
about, let's start with the basics. Let's start with how long you've been living your design, like how long you've known you're a reflector.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, what it was like getting to where you're at now and where you're at and how beautiful and easy life is at this level of where you're at.
yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for that guidance. Thank you for creating this panel and providing this space for all of us to come together. I discovered my reflectorness in 2020, around July, like June, July, in the summer. And actually, it's interesting because I was starting my journey into traveling. I had taken a 2-week trip, 3 weeks with my husband and my 6-month-old son, and we were driving through New Mexico. And my friend called me, and she just looked at my chart, and she told me I'm a reflector, 1%. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever that means. Great. Didn't think about it again for like, I don't know, several months. And then we come back from our trip, fast forward. My family and I are still living in our apartment, but we had decided that we wanted to eventually start traveling full time and live in an RV and travel the country and like find where we want to move because we wanted to move out of LA during the pandemic and all of that. And so somewhere along the line, like before we actually moved out of our apartment, I started being back into the conversation of human design again and knowing that I'm a reflector, and have like actually started looking into it, and it made a lot of sense, like why I felt the way I did growing up, feeling like I'm alone, like no one can relate to me, like I can't really relate to anyone else. And it gave me so much peace to know that like that's not my job. Like my job is not to fit in anywhere. My job is to just taste and to just get a sense of, okay, that group feels like this, that group feels like this, that group feels like this, and just know for myself, you know, assess for myself, and just like be surprised by the universe and the world. And I'm here to just have experiences and to share to people who genuinely want to hear my experiences or my, you know, so-called judgments, non-personal judgments. So, and then what leads me to here today, it's been over a year since I've been traveling full time in my renovated RV. We've been from the West Coast to the East Coast, back to the center, to the North Coast, like to the Northwest Coast, well over 30 states that we visited. And it's really fun to know that I'm a reflector and like living in this, like it's always in the background, like that I'm a reflector. So I live life in a very unconventional way. And I really like it because every place I go, I can like use my intuition and my like reflectorness to feel into like, where do we want to go next? Where do we want to stay next? Oh, I want to explore this hike or this little shop, or let's go over there. I feel like those people might have something interesting to say. Or, you know, it's been really fun to just like let go of all earthly ties and just explore life, and having my energy and my what do you call it, having my energy or my type kind of lead the way. And eventually we're going to have our land, and we want land in multiple places. So it's just been, yeah, it's been a fun experiment, and it's been fun to just like feel into how I'm feeling, how into other people, the collective, and just knowing that I just need more rest than others, and that's okay. And just going with the flow.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Lindsay, why don't you go next? And kind of stay with that same theme, like how long you've known and what led you into it, kind of thing, and then where you are now. But wait, I want to go back to Violet just for a second, because you are working. It isn't like you're just traveling and living the land. You also have a life and a gift that you bring to the world, right? So I don't want to like leave that out, because to me that's part of where reflectors kind of struggle. Like, what work do I do? And would you go back and share that?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. So I have my bachelor's degree in graphic design. I did that for quite a while, and I still use graphic design in my own stuff. But now I've shifted gears, and back in 2020, around the same time I found out I was a reflector, I started a podcast called The Magic Lighthouse, where I interview all kinds of people in the spiritual community and people who are healers, who want to better the world, people in transformational work, personal development, that kind of thing. And I just share my, my musings as well. And then I also do Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, which is an energy healing modality and a spiritual practice. So I do, mostly I do virtual Reiki sessions with people, like one-on-one. And I also host all kinds of fun and creative healing events. So anything from, like, my husband's a painter, so we do like sip and paints or puff and paints where we go in person. We've had a few in-person painting classes where we have drinks and fun, it's a fun time, and we just like bring our healing energy just as ourselves. And then I also like hosted a sound bath with Reiki infusion. And then like I did over a year of monthly online Reiki and Theta healing classes. So I am very like, I like to be with people, and my environment is internal markets. So it's like, I need to bring the people to me, like the people that are like, it's really suited to like have an office where people come to my office, or like it's great for online business because like that's what internal markets means from what I've researched in human design, if you have that in your chart. But yeah, so Reiki, a little bit of graphic design here and there, some coaching, and bringing healing containers to the world. So I hope that answers your question. And I know, like, I'm all over the place because I'm like, I want to try everything. What if I'm a waitress? I haven't tried that yet.
I think too, that's what the guests are going to hear from all of us, is that we're in multiple streams of income. And maybe that's a reflector thing too, that we don't just iron out to one thing. It's too boring for reflectors. Thank you. I wanted to share that because you and I met on a podcast. You invited me as a guest on your podcast, and that's how I met you. And you were the only panelist that I've met before tonight, or before this week, because Lindsay and I just met on the phone or on a Zoom call this week. So yeah, thank you, Violet. Take it away, Lindsay.
All right. Well, one thing that Violet said that really resonated with me was she said that she just let go, like being on the road allowed her to kind of let go. And that's how I feel about what human design did for me. So I discovered it just before the pandemic, and my background is I work in government. So it's a very sort of rigid, fit in the box kind of sort of career path. But what I unknowingly had been doing all along was taking different kind of secondment positions in my organization where I got to work in different areas of specialization. So I was still government, but I was sampling over here and doing things over here, getting leadership experience here, project management. So it's like I had multiple careers at the same place. And that was acceptable because it was in that kind of scope. But once I discovered that I was a reflector, which, like I said, was just before the pandemic, I had to let go of who I used to be. There was a very sort of shamanic death experience where I said, like, this is the end of who I used to be, because now I know why I feel the way I do and why I interact differently with people. I used to have a lot of people tell me that that I didn't connect with them like deeply. And I thought that was always interesting because I could always feel them so deeply. And I'm like, I don't know how much deeper I could connect with you. Like it just kind of blew my mind a little bit. But it was that real like sampling aura. So it's sample it and then kind of like take it back. But yeah, so I work in government. And then when the pandemic happened, I was looking for other things to do. My curiosity got piqued, always being online. And so I started researching some online business options. And through that process, I needed to learn how to create a website. And what I ended up doing was creating a website development company for myself. And I ended up meeting some really incredible entrepreneurs over the past 2 years. And for me, like that variety, getting to help someone who's a pianist set up her program online, or a nutritionist or a sports therapist, like all these different people, it really kind of fed my need to get that variety of different subject matter areas, but kind of all in one sort of stream. So I found it really, really fulfilling in that sense. And it allowed me to also kind of have that creative expression that I wasn't getting in my job. And then since then, I've started another business with one of my good friends who I did her website for her. We became best friends, and now we're business partners. And so I've had to give myself that permission to be able to try things with no expectation of how long like how long I'll be doing it for, right? So I mentioned, Donnelly, to you that I got a digital piano for Christmas a few years ago, played it for a few months and never touched it again. And I had to be like really okay with that. And that's part of the kind of letting go of being a reflector, because everybody is always saying, you have to commit to things, you have to follow through, you have to pick a career at a really young age. And I just never identified with that. And so learning more about what it means to be a reflector, I've given myself permission, because I'm not waiting for anybody else to do it. I gave myself permission to kind of experiment and just see where the day takes me. And sometimes I get lost down a rabbit hole, like researching gardening. And sometimes it's like I'm on space.com looking at planetary alignments. Like, it's just, I never know. And I allow myself to just go with that kind of a flow and just see where it takes me. And I think it's so much fun being a reflector. I think it's important. It has been important for me to have people around me who understand what that means, and who love me enough to be able to tolerate the whole 28-day thing. So that's more than a little bit about me. I'll just leave it there. I think I saw something come up in a question, but I didn't catch it all the way.
Well, I want to invite everyone who is tapped in via the chat to, first of all, announce where you're from, so the other people that are here as listening as well to this discussion can sort of connect with you and see where you're tapping in from, and we can see the broad reach that we have, because I know there were people that were tapping in from the US and outside the US both. So it'd be kind of cool to see that. One thing we didn't mention was our profile number. So we'll come back to that as well, because I do think that when we get into human design, what does set us apart is our profile number. I'm a 4/6 reflector, and I found out December 2019, the day after my birthday. And about 3 weeks later, I got an email or a message in Facebook from our current mayor inviting me into a city council seat. And I was just like, well, shit, Shinola. Like, here's the universe delivering to me how to be the best gauge of the community from a seat in city council. So I knew I had to wait 28 days to give that answer, but I gave it in 21. And I showed up to get sworn into the position, and they made an error and said that the vote didn't pass and sent me home. So it was like the universe made me wait the 28 days. I went back a week later to get sworn in. It was the weirdest thing, but I just realized that maybe this is how it works. And I was still feeling my way into, okay, if I'm really a reflector, I'm saying yes to what the universe brings when it's in alignment, when I check in with that firm yes. And what I realized is there is a model of waiting 28 days, but when you know with certainty, you know with certainty. So that 28 days is to get your certainty. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 lunar cycles to get your certainty. And it's not just a 28-day cycle, but there are times too that I'll know it in a week or 2 or 3 with certainty. This is right for me. So I strolled through city council. It was the shortest job of my life. I never applied for it or resigned from it. And yet I was there 6 months, and literally it was the shortest job of my life. But I also knew the universe took me on that stroll to learn something. And so as I sat back in July of 2020 and said, what's next? Now what? I started looking at, what did I learn? What did I learn from all this? I mean, shy of judging everyone, I saw elected officials in positions where they had an inner bias and they weren't voting on behalf of the people. And I saw that they lacked self-awareness. And I saw that, so I started realizing that I was here to do more. And lo and behold, I birthed a book. All of what I went through finally came full front and center to show me that we're in some tough and challenging times right now. the world is evolving, our planet is evolving, and we as people are evolving really quickly. We are. And I think the other panelists will also agree that over the last 2 years, part of your alignment and your growth and your changes has been following your design. But the other part of it is that the energy coming onto Earth, altering us, changing us, catapulting us forward is big. It's huge. And I get free downloads. I tune in, I get still, I get quiet, and I get curious about the energy I sense and I feel, right? Because to me, that's what being a reflector is all about. How much of this is me and how much isn't me? And COVID was a real amazing gauge for me. I live alone. I don't even have a pet. So I could seriously sit in my own space and feel the collective energy. I could feel it. I wasn't even around people. But I also knew I could just as easily release it, send them love, comfort, healing. And while we don't know much about the invisible world or the spiritual realm, it's just as real, if not more real, than our physical reality. And that's what being a reflector has really shown me is, we have two sides to the chart. We have a personality on the far right, and that's sort of our ego. That's sort of our humanness that we know and we're aware of. And then we've got the design part, which is sort of like the unconscious, subconscious aspects of us that we're here to evolve into and pull forth and become aware of. And to me, it's been a continual journey of deconditioning. I have my own business, it's Complete Solutions, and I've been helping businesses with their leadership skills and workplace wellness for the last decade. And I just got clearer that I crafted a book. You can't even see it because of my background. But I just got my first proofs on it. It's called Bringing Spirituality into Business. And what it really is a guide to know yourself, grow yourself, and live life empowered. That we're really here to learn who we are. And I think if you really got what Violet and Lindsay shared, is that's been their journey, realizing who they are, right? Finding out, tuning into, and learning more about themselves along the journey. And to me, there's 3 ways of getting here. I call it the ABCs. The A is awareness. And this is our gift as reflectors. It's truly our superpower. We're here to observe. And in that field of awareness, in the beginning, it's a skill. But as you practice it, model it more and more, it's a field of awareness you step into. It's the present moment, where the past doesn't come with you. And the past is your conditioning, right? And I'm hoping you guys can agree with this. So this is where we kind of have to chime in and have a conversation around this as well. But I do want to say that, when we really get clear on living our design, we have to step into awareness. And awareness is the present moment. And when we're there in the present, we don't bring our past with us. Whatever's happening, we get curious about it. We get real curious about what's happening before us. We don't judge it based on our past history. We let it show us what it means for us today, anew. And the B, the ABCs, the B is, who are we being? And we have 4 intelligence systems that we have access to: the IQ, the EQ, the PQ, and the SQ. And they all matter. So it's really a balance of working amongst those energies. And the C is curiosity. We've got to get curious about, is this mine or not mine? Is this, am I having a judgment here and am I making this personal? Because it's not personal. And it's been a real big journey. So before we go further deeper into this, because I want to answer questions and I want to also take a poll and see where you're at so we can guide the rest of this time together answering things that matter to you. So let me put a poll up here and ask you to answer these questions. So what's the biggest struggle that you find in living your design? Is it waiting 28 days? Is it deconditioning? Is it figuring out what you want in your life? Is it simply going with the flow? Or is it trusting yourself? And then the second question is, when I think about being a reflector, I love it or I hate it. So let's just let the poll populate and see what kind of results we get. And then we can get real clear on where we can kind of guide these conversations going forward. And I've got some questions that were sent in from the website and Facebook and the response on the invite for this event. So can you guys post in the chat that you're done with the poll? I'm going to wait one more minute just in case. It says 33 people have, no, 13 of 16 have participated. So we still have a few more. If you can answer the questions, that'd be really great. I'm seeing most of you love it, so that's good. You love being a reflector. That's awesome. Okay, so it looks like we have 36% have a struggle with deconditioning. So that's top. The next one in on the list is figuring out what you want. And the next one is trusting yourself. So we'll just go with the top three. And ladies, if you could help me remember, we're talking deconditioning, figuring out what you want, and trusting yourself. And I'm going to end the poll. Perfect.
I think those things are all wrapped up together and they go like so hand in hand because Donnelly, I'm so glad that you mentioned the curiosity because as soon as I found out I was a reflector, I'm a 6'2", by the way. I think I saw somebody else who's a 6'2" as well in the chat. As soon as I found out about it, I started getting really curious about what it means to be a reflector. But then also, I feel like my mind did this really big sweep of my entire life history to see how I've been conditioned and, you know, to see like, are these really my behaviors, my traits, or did they belong to my parents? And I just kind of carried them with me. Because as reflectors, being in a room with people, we're meant to be like to experience conditioning. We're just not meant to hold on to it. And I had to get curious about, okay, what am I holding on to? What stories am I telling myself about my potential and even my identity? So like, it was really important for my parents that we went to university and I had to get a master's degree. And it was because we were like, that's who we were. And to start a business without having formal business training, oh my goodness, like that's just not like, who are you to do that? You know, a lot of those, I got that a lot from my family when I told them I was starting an online business. And it was just like, there's so many things that I had to say, okay, that's your thing. That's not mine. Like, I'm curious, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. I don't care where I end up. It's more about the experience kind of thing. And I think trusting yourself comes into play where you give yourself that permission to kind of explore and just feel things out. Because for me, I swear it's like day by day, one step at a time, one tiny little thing at a time, from something even as small as like, what time do I wake up in the morning? And I realized that I used to set my alarm based on when my parents used to get up. That was like our wake up time as a teenager. And then I thought, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't set an alarm anymore. You know, it was just those little things. And I felt very empowered doing that. Like just saying like, no more alarm. Like this is my time. I decide when I wake up. Small victory, but it's that curiosity, the day to day, like look around. What do you do? Who do you interact with? You know, what job do you have? And is it something you love or something that you were pushed into? And then you just take it from there. There's nothing that says you have to have these broad sweeping changes right away. It's a journey and it's a lifelong journey. So don't expect like an endpoint when you're like, oh, I'm finally like a zened out reflector. Like, I don't think that ever fully happens.
Yeah, I love what you said where you added that part, you know, what would you love? What do you love? Like, that's a question I started asking myself. And it's funny when I ask other people what they would love, most people don't give themselves permission to ask that question. And I think it's important that as reflectors, we learn what we'd love. And it may change every day, and that's okay. And Lindsay, I love how you two said, you might spend hours, online searching up the stars or astrology. And same here. I get caught in a learning or an excitement in knowing more about something, and I can't let it go. Like it's just got a hold of me, and I can't. And I give myself permission to do that. And to be honest, generally, I learned something from that time that I needed, and I apply in the next day or two.
Yeah.
So it's sort of how the universe works to guide me into things. And if I judge them and stop them, I wouldn't be getting the insight and knowledge that I needed from being in that experience that I wanted to judge, because I've been on both sides of I had to turn off that judgment on me, right? And if you listen to Violet, she had to turn it off. She had to seriously leave something completely behind. That was having a brick and mortar home. She was a home on wheels. I mean, we all have to turn off that old us. We really do. And it really helps if you step into something new, right? If you trust yourself. And I think you're so right when you said they play together. So on the topic of deconditioning, figuring it out, and trusting yourself, can you kind of share your perspective on that too, Violet?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think I will address the trusting yourself. I do agree. It's all, it's all connected. The trusting yourself, I find that before I knew I was a reflector, I did not trust myself at all, because I had gotten into so many situations that left me feeling like not good, like feeling crazy, feeling like, am I a bad person? Why doesn't this person like me? Or like some people, like as you grow up, like, as a teenager, as a kid, feeling like I want to be part of the group, but then also not wanting to be part of the group. And then there's all these things. So I always judged myself and judged my own, like I didn't trust myself, because I would get into situations because of my desire to try things, to sample things, but not knowing, and also the conditioning that you should do, you should pick something and stick with it. Like having the awareness that actually my job is to try things and move on, and try things again and move on, and that's okay. That has helped me to build my trust and to like get to a place of complete nothingness, like being in my own energy, being in nature, which I get to be in all the time. Like I took this picture yesterday on a hike. That really helps too. And I forgot to mention that I also teach Reiki, and why I'm so passionate about energy healing, specifically Reiki, is because when I'm in the middle of a session and I'm like when I'm in the flow with, either if I'm doing a session on myself or with someone else, I feel like I get to this place of just like peace and just stillness, where I can actually be fully present and just really here and now. And then it like creates a space for like divine downloads or divine intention, intuition to come through. And it's just a whole space. So I'm still learning I'm still, learning to trust myself and working with that. But I'm significantly a lot better at it. And I would just say, find a place where you can just be by yourself and not have any influence from anyone else into your own decision making or trusting yourself. And that's a great place to start.
Yep, I agree. I too feel like the deconditioning, the figuring it out, and the trusting yourself, they aren't a once and done. Let me just say that. Like they're a continual practice and process, that they're in place all the time. And at every level of my growth that I step into something else new, I notice more conditioning. I notice more fear coming in. I notice more, doubt or uncertainty that I have to move through. And I notice that I don't have it all figured out, but that I have to trust. So that figuring it out part, like there's one thing of figuring out what feels good. And I think this is a really good part. So let me share this, because it's in writing the book. I loved the writing part. I made myself go to the coffee shop, and I got activated. My open centers got channeled and activated from other people in the coffee shop that I didn't even have to talk to or engage with, right? So I was in an external market, which is me. I'm an external market scout, right? So I thrive in that environment. And yet I wasn't even tuning into my own energy. I was just getting grounded and letting the words come through me. But I was trusting that they'd come. And I was trusting that I didn't have to edit them, that I didn't have to alter them, right? Like, so I knew what I was putting out in the book, and it was a fun practice because it was really leaning into my design. Here comes stage 2, edit in the book. And I've got an editor who's giving me corrections, and I'm thinking, well, shit, I don't like what she's saying. And then I'm like, oh God, be open. Like I'm finding that I have to enter this step in a different way than I did the other step. So I had to change for this step. And I also had to look at it as fun, as creative fun. She's professional, and she's reading the book as a stranger. And maybe I think I make sense. And maybe in my output, I did make sense. But as a reader, not knowing what I'm talking about, it's not as clear to her. So there were things she suggested I edit. And I got to see where I could accept or reject. And I could see where, no, I'm really firm on this. So it was really calling me to task. That project was a big learning lesson for me. I learned more about myself writing that book, because even now in the marketing part of it, I'm in uncharted water. I got fear and resistance showing up again and again and again. I got conditioning from society coming in that I have to notice and be aware of. And as far as figuring it out, I figure out my main objective, and that's to sell books, to serve others, to empower them, to help them live their life to the fullest, to know themselves, to grow themselves and be empowered. That's my aim. That's all I got to figure out. I got to stay focused on that, and then trust that the universe continually shows me the next step, the next step, the next step. And it has been a process, a real big process. But it wasn't until I let go. And in our human nature, we struggle to hold on, and we hold on to our pain. We hold on to our uncertainty. We hold on to our frustration. We struggle to hold on, and we struggle to let go also. I had a friend who was all caught up in, it was during the pandemic and all, and he says, I'm so caught up in all this Trump stuff and I can't get it out of my head, and he was just struggling to let go of the drama and trauma and repeated loops in his head. But he was also struggling to hold on. And that's our humanness, right? And to me, I have to have a vision or another idea to interrupt that pattern to help me let go. What do I really want? Where do I really want to be? How do I really want to feel? So I want to get to a few of these questions that have come in the Q&A box. And this is perfect where you should be putting them is in the Q&A box. And I want to answer who's putting in things in here, and then the extras will come from the paper and the sheet in front of me if we have time. So the first one is for everyone. How do you explain to people that you experience the world differently? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. It's funny because I found human design before my best friend did. So I learned I was a reflector, and then I told her, I'm like, there's this thing called human design. You're a manifesting generator. And I didn't even tell her what I was. She went and researched what it meant for her to be a manifesting generator. And then she was like, you're a reflector, aren't you? And it was like, I felt validated and seen, but just kind of having that conversation where somebody is equally kind of as interested in it, I think obviously helped. I tried explaining to my like 80-year-old father what human design is. It didn't go over well. Like it's just, there's some people who are just not going to be open to it or not going to understand, anything. And so I just, the people who are very important to me and whose opinions matter and, who I want to live closely with, like my husband, um, it's just about awareness. And sometimes it's like giving him an example of like, he's said, like, let's plan a trip. I'm like, okay, I get nervous when we plan trips because I will go through highs and lows about really wanting to go and then being really scared of coming out of my comfort zone. So you got to give me a buffer so that I can kind of process. And we started doing this when he likes to host like barbecues and stuff at our house. I don't love having a lot of people at my house. So I said, if you give me a lot of time, a couple weeks, I will get there and I'll be able to kind of, get on board with it. And so it's kind of like it's a win-win because he wants to have the party and I want to feel good about it. So all he has to do is just give me a bit of a heads up. So I think sometimes it's like we hear the whole wait 28 days and it sounds really long and drawn out, but sometimes it's even like if somebody asks you, hey, do you want to go to do this? Just like, let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. And sometimes having just a bit of space between when the initial ask or the initial idea is put in front of you so that you can kind of sit with it and think like, how does this feel for me? And then giving yourself the space to give a response. I found little things like that are really helpful. Some people, they're just not going to be accommodating, but I've kind of phrased it to people like, you like to make quick decisions and that works for you. It does not work for me. And sometimes it's about putting boundaries and just standing up for yourself, because that's something that I found I did not do well pre-reflector. I did not stand up for myself and I would have just go with the flow of what everybody else was doing. So um, I've tried to be a little bit stronger when I know I'm going to need some more time, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. And it's not that you have to tell people your human design, but you do need to be open and honest and say, I need a little more time to think about that, right? Can I get back to you on that? And then just letting them know that you're really comfortable and confident when you've given big topics, big decisions, ample thought processing, and that it just doesn't happen overnight for you. I feel like the world is filled with all different personalities. That's one thing we learn in studying human design. There's no two personalities that are identical. We have similar qualities, but there's no two of us that are alike. So to explain to other people that we experience the world differently, we don't have to explain to anybody, first of all, right? But we do want to invite them to accept us as we are, right? And I think that as we're confident in who we are, that goes forth before us. That energy goes forth before us and invites them to accept us. But when we wobble in our own trusting ourselves, they sense that too. They sense that too. And I think that's where the explaining comes. The next question is, this one's for everyone as well. What's your preferred method for cleansing yourself of energy at the end of the day? And I'm going to start here with Violet, just because you obviously, do we really even need to know what you need to do? But you obviously have short versions, long versions. And to me, this is an amazing topic for you to share a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so cleansing at the end of the day, in a perfect world, if I was by myself, I had all the time in the world, I would do a 30-minute Reiki session on myself. So it's and you can do it even if you're not Reiki attuned. You can just put your hands on your heart or on your head. Intuitively, you can go down the chakras or the body parts and just kind of visualize light energy coming from the top of your head, out your hands. And you can, some of you might intuitively already self-soothe by just sitting and being and meditating. We clear energy through breath. So letting out sound with that breath. Sound helps us to release energy, and movement. So dancing or yoga or stretching, And I've even done like a few Reiki for Reflectors group healing sessions because like I wanted to know how it would feel to like release all of the extra stuff in the space of Reflectors. And then but so that's like perfect, you know, taking a shower, taking a bath, just like letting the water help to cleanse you, having the water like, you know, visualizing what's no longer serving you, go down the drain. You can pray over the water. There's different like little things you can do depending on your, you know, your lifestyle. So I have a toddler and a husband and a dog, and we travel full time. So I don't always get to do all these things for myself, but something that I do notice makes a humongous difference is I have to have a shower every day. Every morning, it's like until I have my shower, like my in the morning or afternoon, I'm like do not talk to me. I am not ready for you. I'm not ready for the day. And that's just something that I've discovered is my thing. So I make it my sacred shower. I put on music. I put on like, sometimes it's just music and like the lighting is nice. And then I just like enjoy my shower and I do what I need to like take care of myself. And I give myself permission, and I've communicated that like, this is my time. So how can you take little like energy cleansing tools and adjust it to fit your life and your lifestyle? I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think those are all super amazing, and you're spot on. I think both Lindsay and I could agree that, you know, movement, stretching, meditation, quieting the mind, you know, intentional chakra cleansing and going through your body. I mean, visualizing and releasing. And I love ocean music and just let it wash away, right? Like sometimes the sound helps. But yeah, that's a great one. The next question is, how does the moon, as well as other planetary positions, affect you during your 28-day lunar cycle? I will tell you, I'm greatly affected. I'm greatly affected by transiting planets. I follow astrology, but I had an ayahuasca journey about 7 years ago, and I'm still processing what I learned in that journey. And it told me I needed to really learn how I was utilizing my energy. And it led me to astrology, to the energy that I'm getting from the planetary transits and the lunar transits and all that I have access to. And so if you're interested, if you're asking this question, you're called to do the work. You're called to lean into the study. And I would just invite you to start educating yourself. Start looking at your transits, and you can pull up an app on your phone to do it, or you can do it through Genetic Matrix or a website on your computer. I have both, and I probably use both equally. You know, there are times I want to see a bigger version of it, and I don't just look at the moon. I look at the other planets as well. Like right now, Uranus is transiting through Taurus, and it's my first house. And Uranus is like a big disruptor. And my first house is my identity. It's who you are in the world. And I happen to have Mars at 17 degrees, and Mars, what makes you take action in the world. So he's, you know, that planet that really gets you into action. And I'm launching a book, so I'm in action, right? Like they're being amplified. They're being energized for me in big ways. And I pay attention to astrologers, and I listen to the energy weather reports of what's coming and the energies that they have greater insight to that I'm still learning about. And right now we're getting into where Uranus is going to be conjunct the North Node, which we all have the new North Node, right? A year ago, the nodes changed gates, and we all got different gates activated in our design because of it. So Uranus is going to come conjunct, which is like on top of, at the same position as, in Taurus, wherever you have Taurus in your chart, that's the house that's going to be affected for you. And if you have planets around 17, 18, or 19 degrees, you're going to be highly impacted. I have Mars there. I'm going to be highly impacted. This benefits me to know this in advance, to know this is going to be happening around the 20th of this month, all the way through about the 10th of August, because Mars joins the party and goes conjunct with the two of them in August. So it really amplifies that energy. But it also showed me, oh, I wonder if any of my kids have this. So I looked up their charts, and my middle son has the moon in his fourth house. And the moon's all about our inner emotions, right? Fourth house is all about family relationships. And he's been in struggles ever since Uranus went into his Taurus back in 2020, late 2020. So he's been in these emotional roller coasters, and we've had the outs. He was angry at me for 6 or 9 months last year. So I mentioned to him that, this transit's going to happen and it might impact him. And he says, I said, you've healed all your relationship issues, right? And he said, no, Eric and I aren't talking. And I said, well, you might want to fix it before we get in this conjunction, because it's going to amplify the energy you're in, is what happens. So when you're having a big upset, you can usually look back to these charts and planets and see where they're at in your chart to see how you're being impacted. So that was a really great question. And I know that the answer was really long and drawn out, but they do affect you. And to really see how they affect you, you'll have to start working with them and listening and learning to read your chart. Violet.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to just add something to this. Like, everything you said was awesome. And I used to think that waiting a 28-day cycle was just like, okay, just have to wait. But then there's, just actively like journaling, talking to people about it, kind of like every day you're in a new energy because you're in a new transit. The moon's in a different phase, which has its own meaning. And like, you use people around you that are open to it as a springboard, because I've had issues where people get upset when I use them as a springboard and I don't take their advice or whatever. But it's like, we have to get our ideas and thoughts out there. So find someone that you can talk to, and that they won't get offended if you don't take their advice. But the breakthrough that I got, like the biggest breakthrough I got, is I came across a podcast where they were talking about the lunar cycle, waiting a lunar cycle. And the 28 days is not just about waiting, but it's about getting distance from that decision. So with each day, you're taking a step back, taking another step back, and you're getting a broader view. So if I'm looking at my hand here and I want to make a choice about my hand, but I need to wait that 28-day cycle, it's like, okay, another day I'm going back, and I'm seeing a bigger view. I can see a wider scope, like a difference between seeing a tree and stepping back and seeing the whole mountain. That's the 28-day cycle for me. Like, that's what I got from that podcast. And it's like completely changed my mind about it, or my approach, because I'm the kind of person that's like, once I feel it in my body, like it's a yes, and I'm like, let's go, let's start doing the flyers, let's start getting stuff rolling. But I'm like, okay, gotta like wait to see the bigger picture. How does it all fit into everything? And then that also allows for surprises from the universe to trickle in, and for things to just like synchronize, and like, wow, I didn't expect that to happen. So I wanted to just also add that, even though it might not have been exactly the answer, but I thought that was.
Yeah, I think there's another question that came in online, and it was, I want to know how to track the transits and how to use the information from a day-to-day basis. And I have to agree with Violet. My big awareness in following my transit wasn't about looking that this is a projector day, this is a generator day. It wasn't about giving labels to things or saying this is a day I can be productive and I can't be, and nothing like that. It was more, what am I still open on making big decisions on? What am I still looking for clarity and confirmation on? And how do I feel about it today? How does today's energies let me see it differently? And it was really about just using that curiosity, because you've got to, one, be aware that you're still asking the questions and they're still wanting answers to them. But the other thing I found out as being a reflector, we don't have to answer these stupid questions. We let the universe answer them. Like, I used to try to answer them for myself. And I I think Karen Curry Parker told me, oh, sweetie, you don't have to answer these questions. You're asking the universe. And I was like, oh my God, it was like a weight got lifted off my shoulders that moment. It was like, oh, what freedom. And, you know, it's funny because Christianity, the Bible teaches ask and you shall receive. And I never knew what that meant. I mean, I thought it meant like a new Barbie doll when I was a little girl. And when that didn't happen, I realized the statement didn't make any sense to me. But today it makes total sense because I ask these big questions. I get curious and I let the universe answer for me. And to me, that's that waiting the 28 days. Is this right for me? If so, what actions do I take? What feels good today? How does this topic feel, look? You know, and some days it may just be nothing shows up. That's okay. That's okay. Don't judge it. Just be aware, nod and move on, accept it. So I do think that the whole lunar cycle thing doesn't even come with consistency. There was a part of me that was trying to make each one of those gates feel consistent each month. And it was like, that doesn't happen either, because what I'm tuning into and who I am and the other planets, and they all change us. It's like, you can't even get that consistency, like saying, oh, every month when I'm in gate this, I'm going to have this. Nope, not so. So it's really being flexible. And I feel like there's a part of it that's allows us to be a chameleon, right? You're changing with every circumstance and the environment, and right. And you got to have the grace and the trust and confidence to flow with that change each and every time. There might be enough time for just one more question. If anybody wants to type it into the Q&A. I'm sorry, I haven't been following the chat box for questions. So if anybody can type into the Q&A, we'll answer one more question if you have it. I hope you guys have learned something and found something of value. Can you type into the chat if you found this to be of value, and if you want to come back to another one and just kind of give us some feedback?
If for nothing else, then just to be around other people who get what it's like to be a reflector.
Yeah, it's been fun sharing with you. I can say that.
There was a question in the chat that stood out to me. It was, can we share about what does it mean to be a lunar creature? Not about the waiting 28 days, but that we don't generate our own energy. We reflect others' energies. Can we talk about that one?
Yep.
What do you think about that?
So I don't think I reflect your energy. Like, you get a reflection back to you of your energy from me, but you're not feeling my energy. You're feeling your energy. And to me, that's what being a reflector is all about. That the people in our circle, whatever they come forth with is what they feel bouncing back at them. So if they're coming at me with a judgment or an uncertainty, they're going to get more of that back. No matter how much love I wrap up in that energy. I mean, I can sense the discord if they're saying, oh, I like you, and I can feel where they don't, right? Like I sense that. I think being a reflector, we sense the disconjunction in someone's words and energy. Would you agree, ladies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was just going to mention the other reason why we're known to be lunar beings is because the moon doesn't actually have its own light, right? It gets its light from reflection up from the sun. So it in itself is kind of like this open planet, and it's open to receiving the light, you know, bouncing off from the sun. And so I thought, like, I actually didn't know that until recently about the moon, that it didn't have its own light. I don't know why, but it was something I just never thought of. And I thought, oh my goodness, like that, it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I just and just on the topic of not having our own energy, I love being a reflector because anytime I need to tap into energy, I can put some music on, and it's like I get to borrow whichever mood or whichever type of energy I need in the moment. And sometimes like it's just being in proximity to someone, or watching a show, or I'll watch like silly YouTube videos just to boost my mood, and just know that those tools are available to you all the time. And we're very lucky like that. Like not every human design type will respond to things like that if they have a defined center. So I just think like we're so open to everything. It's wonderful.
I will ditto that. Like, I feel like that to me is the biggest gift, being a lunar being. And lunar to me means open and reflective, that I pick up other people's energy, and I get activations in my gates and stuff from planets in the solar system and other people, but also what I'm listening to, what I'm watching, what I'm engaging with. It's all activating me in little bitty ways, right? But I don't feel like I pick up people's energy. Like, I can sense somebody's negativity, and like there's a nod, there's a no, I don't want that going on inside me, and I let it go. Like I've got an inner program put in place, maybe, to know that I'm choosing at all times. Yeah.
I wanted to also like someone asked in the questions, is it if my boyfriend thinks I'm upset because I said a bland response, then maybe he's upset? Well, sometimes, like, be careful not to like just like make a decision like, oh, it's because I'm reflecting all of you guys, like you just think I'm this way because I'm reflecting your energy and it's your fault. Like some people take this and start to like what they like spiritually bypass, like discard other people's emotions. So I like the C part of the ABCs, like get curious if someone is saying they're upset or they think you're upset, or if there's something missing, just get curious. And what, like maybe you're reflecting something else, or maybe they're having, I don't know, like there's not a black and white thing. And it can sometimes be a little tricky when you try to like have all the answers, and it's like, well, just be open and curious.
Yeah.
And have grace with yourself and others.
Yeah, I think it's having grace and that forgiveness and love, and just because we're all learning, and this really is a journey of learning yourself, right? And you're not permanently fixed to one way. But if you start going with the flow more and more, and when other people are upset, I get curious. Is everything okay? First of all, I never take it personal. Never take it personal. In my early years, that was my biggest conditioning. I took everything personal. I made it all about me. And now I get curious, and there's more compassion in that, because now I'm realizing, oh, they're acting out of character. Is everything okay? If it's about me, they're going to tell me when I ask, are you okay? Right? And then I can figure out what happened and what went wrong. But to show that compassion is true love for another person, right? So to me, we're practicing and modeling love always, first and foremost for ourselves, and then for others. I love you all so much. This was fun. Thank you all for coming. We did record this, so I'll try to upload it and put a post out where you can go back and re-listen to it if you want to. And yeah, we can share it. And we'll do another one. If anybody else wants to be part of the panel, reach out to me, and we can work that out, and we'll do one a month or something like that for a while, and see if they get enough interest, and then we'll see where we go. But we'd love your input and your ideas and your suggestions on how to make it better as well.
And really great questions today. There are lots of really good questions. So thanks for those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna-Lee, for creating this and organizing, and just like all of the work you had to put through that we didn't see to have this happen. And it was great.
Aw, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. And